Again, did not need the stopwatch. Eugene Myrick. Sir, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to stand for two reasons. One, out of respect, and because my pants are a little bit tight and I get a little bit of leak.
Oh, come on, it's after lunch. I think we all know how that goes. We always had our stretchy pants on after lunch.
I came to Raleigh in 1990 to attend Shaw University. That's over 30 years now. And I'm not a Raleigh native, but I've seen the changes. From what was, I don't even know if we could call it downtown at the time. I think by the time I graduated, First Union made it put that one tall building that was there. And when I was a student, we pretty much had, I think, the McDonald's and maybe a Subway downtown. So there's definitely a lot that has changed since then. When I graduated from Shaw, I actually worked in the Wake County Public School System as a paraprofessional, which is basically a teacher's assistant. And I worked at, which was Dorothea Dix Hospital at the time. A lot of folks focused on the mental health of adults, but there were quite a few kids that were residents of Dorothea Dix. So as folks are focusing on the mental health of adults, I'm wondering, have we left a lot of kids behind? Do we even have those type of services anymore? And there's a lot of things that I brought to City Council over the last few years, and they say, well, that's not a city issue, that's a county issue. But I feel if it's happening in Raleigh, it's a city issue. Another issue that we deal with, like my daughter works in the Wake County Public School System now, and she manages two of the cafeterias. And there's an issue where if a kid doesn't have the funds to eat, they're given a fruit, a vegetable, and an empty cup to get water. And I'm saying to her, like, how is that possible? And I'm thinking, if by law, a child of a certain age is required to be in school, then by law, that child should be required to eat. I just think that's common sense. It's not charity, it's not sympathy, it's empathy. We should be willing to at least be willing to feed a child. But on another level, after working in the Wake County school system, I went and taught special education in New York for 7 years, and kind of burnt out on the school system because you don't get the funding that you need, you don't get the support that you need when you teach special education. And one of the things I did, I got into broadcast radio. And broadcast radio, you get to travel like sports. You go where you get the best contract, and there's these things that you do in radio called remotes, where you hear them on the radio, meet me at so-and-so, and you can win all these great prizes. But being in Los Angeles and being in Chicago, you got to get out into the streets. And when I saw those skid rows in Los Angeles, coming back to Raleigh, I never thought I would see people on the side of the road. I never thought I would see homeless encampments on the side of the road. So all of the things that have happened other places are happening in Raleigh in real time. So this is why we have to focus on affordability in Raleigh. And I'm not just interested in saying we need to create affordable housing. How? Instead of giving up city-owned land to private companies to develop, and then we subsidize unaffordability, why don't we use that city-owned land to create affordability? And instead of focusing on the area median income, which is $116,000 for a family of four, meaning a family of four should be able to afford $2,900 a month for rent. I just don't think that's realistic. Police officers, teachers, firefighters, that's unrealistic for them as well. So when we create this affordable housing, I'm saying let's create it based off an individual's income. Let's focus on a neighborhood median income. Let's go into some of these communities and find out how much money are folks actually making, and let's try to make this city affordable for everyone. And that's just a start. Am I under my 3 minutes?
Just about 3 minutes. You're good. You got the internal clock going. We're going to come back to that because we're hearing a common refrain here, and that is affordability, security, expansion, growth. So I think we're going to see these as common themes. All right, Mr. Shaughnessy, yes?
That's me.
James or Jim?
James. Jim's my grandfather.
All right, I hear you. Go ahead, James, City of Raleigh.
I know the burning question that everyone has right now is who the hell is this kid and why is he running for mayor? I'll answer the first one. My name is James Shaughnessy, and I was born and raised in this beautiful city, Raleigh, North Carolina. It is the best city in the world, I believe. I've traveled to over 25 states and to over 13 countries. And every time I come back, I find more appreciation for the great place that you guys have built. The second question on why I'm running, and is a short answer, and excuse me for my language, but I give a shit. I think every politician should have that sort of emphasis on, I want to do more and give everything I can. Someone asked me about my tattoos earlier, about whether I was in the Army. Not really. I got it because I wanted to join the Army. That was the only thing I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to serve my country. When I was joining, they found out I was disabled, and I couldn't join. And so I had to find my service elsewhere, and this is kind of where I'm finding it at the moment. I love this city more than anything else, and I want to give my life for it. Now, we've already talked about, affordability and housing, and affordability affects me. I'm a young person. I am a working class. I make less than $40,000 a year, and that cost of housing is right at my doorstep. I don't have a big fancy job. So I see what most people feel. The average median income of Raleigh is $47,000 a year, and as we already established that from WRAL, the median income for Raleigheites should be $110,000 for a single person. Police don't make that much. Firefighters don't make that much. I don't make that much. And I'm sure most of you don't make that much either.
Not anymore.
So that cost is affecting young people in a very major way and forcing a lot of people to move away for better opportunities and more money. And I'm sure that you have a lot of young people in your family that you want to be close to. And I want to build a place where every generation can be here. Young, middle-aged, old, so that the family can stay together and there can be love, an environment for love. Now, one thing that was mentioned earlier is that this is technically a nonpartisan race. While technically true, I'm the only one that's not affiliated with the party. I have a fresh, blank slate to bring to this. I can work with the General Assembly, who's probably Republican. We'll see. And I can work with the governor, who's, we'll probably see what they're doing. I don't have a predetermined opinion of them because I don't play party politics. I put people over party. It doesn't make any sense for me or for people I'm supposed to be representing to pick a side, because it shouldn't be about picking sides. It should be all about what policy can help the most amount of people. And I want to push that forward. Thank you.
All right, under 3 minutes. No pressure. And I think, Mary, you probably joined us, you got here just after we read the rules, so really quickly. We are doing 3-minute opening statements, so you can talk a little bit about your priorities and your experience. And then afterwards, we'll do Q&A, and we'll limit the answers to about 2 minutes as we get everybody get their questions in. Sound good?
Okay, I actually have prepared statements. I don't like to speak without doing that, and I prepared it for 5 minutes, so I will pare it
That's
down.
right, because I think we said 5 was going to be at the beginning, so if you could pare it down just a little bit, we'll let you weave in more later.
Absolutely. I'm
Thank
going to
you,
stand
Mary.
to you, so you can all, for the same reason everybody else stood up, and also so you can see my cool thrifted jacket that I got from my grandma.
And this is also, Mary is running for City Council District A. She is the incumbent. So everyone else has been mayoral candidates up until now, and then county commissioners. This is City Council.
Hi everyone, so my name is Mary Black, and I'm running to represent this district on Raleigh City Council. I've served as your counselor for the past 2 years, but most importantly, I've lived in District A for nearly 2 decades. Like many of you, I've seen firsthand just how much our city has changed over the years, both the good and the challenges that come along with the growth. It's this experience that drives my work every day. My platform, RISE, stands for Rights for All Workers, Inclusive Community Safety, Smart and Equitable Housing Solutions, and Environmental Justice and Equity. So today I wanted to talk to you about what it really means when we say, let's make Raleigh a community where everyone can rise together. So this election cycle, I've been doing a lot of canvassing and door-to-door knocking, and recently I knocked on the door of Miss Margaret, who has lived in her house for 40 years. We talked about a lot of things, little things had to do with what's actually happening with City Council, until she told me that since just last year, her property taxes have increased by $1,700. Her and her husband are retired and they're on a fixed income, and it's getting harder to cover these tax increases. Luckily, her daughter is moving back in and will help them out, but it's a common story I'm hearing both in the district and across the city, particularly from seniors on fixed incomes. I knew these increases were coming, and I chose not to support the budget this year because it didn't take a revenue-neutral approach. And we need people in council that are going to continue to represent those views for advocating for solutions and utilize our partnerships with the county and the state to expand and see property tax exemptions, as well as work with the county to establish local assistance programs. Additionally, for the last 2 years, I've been a very strong advocate for council establishing a participatory budgeting process. So if you're wondering what that means, it's simple. It would allow residents like you to have a direct say in how your tax dollars are spent. Imagine being able to decide what projects are prioritized in our community, whether it's infrastructure, safety, or public services. It's a process that ensures yours and all voices are heard loud and clear when it comes to how our city grows and spends. Another issue we're seeing is a lot of homelessness. People experiencing homelessness has increased 200% in the last 4 years in this city. In fact, in Raleigh and Wake County, there are over 6,000 people seeking homelessness support services, around 900 people experiencing homelessness on any given night, and 4,700 children in the Wake County school system experiencing homelessness. These are the growing number of people you probably noticed in the encampments in the woods and panhandling across the city as well as in downtown. As a city council member, I've been working on programs that offer real solutions for homelessness that include expanding the city's alternative mental health crisis program and funding targeted response programs across the city. So, in conclusion, a Raleigh that rises together is one that protects homeowners and supports our city's progress and the ability for everyone to age in place. It centers around working towards a budget model for the city that is truly representative and participatory. It advocates for a safer community and a more compassionate response for everyone, and it invests in the people who keep our city moving to ensure that Raleigh remains a thriving, well-maintained city for years to come. Thank you.
3 minutes and 10 seconds. Pretty good. Okay. And we have another candidate who's just joined us here for Raleigh City Council, Mitchell. So, Mitchell or Mitch?
Mitchell's fine.
Mitchell, okay. Mitchell joins us for Raleigh City Council. Do you need a moment or get a drink of
A
water?
little bit of an emergency.
Oh,
Testing.
are you not? Are you thinking?
Testing,
There you
testing,
go,
here we go.
okay.
Had a little bit of emergency, it's taken care of,
Okay,
so I'll have my woosah moment and I'll be fine.
okay.
Good.
Well, what we're doing right now, just to give you a little bit of that moment, I'll give you just a few minutes to kind of prepare. We're asking all the candidates just to give a brief 3-minute statement, a little bit about your experience and qualifications, if you will, that bring you to the role, and also what you would do if elected. And then we're gonna have Q&A from the audience asking questions, and we'll just ask everybody to keep around the responses to about 2 minutes so we can get lots of questions in. But
2
right now you have 3 minutes.
Okay.
So just give an opening statement and take your time. It's all good.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mitchell Silver, and I am so excited to run for District A here in Raleigh. So you know a bit about my background. I'm originally from New York, but I came here in 2005 and stayed till 2014. And I was a planning director for the city that established a blueprint for growth that allowed this city to evolve. I was a planner that was involved in helping reimagine North Hills, both sides, also the downtown development, but a growth framework map that allowed for a more rational and smart way to handle our growth and grow our city. I was called back to New York City, where I served as New York City's Parks Commissioner, overseeing close to 2,000 parks, 10,000 employees, and started teaching in both Harvard and now I teach at UNC. When my term was over in New York, I came back to the city I love. This is where I'm going to retire and lay to rest, and I'm so excited to bring that talent here to Raleigh. In terms of my commitment, knowing Raleigh's going to reach soon 500,000 people, I wanted to bring my 40 years of executive leadership to the City Council to work with all the residents to figure out how we're going to manage our growth. My key issues is housing affordability, attainability to ensure your children, your grandchildren, seniors, people with disabilities, and veterans can live in this city. That's a priority. Number 2 is traffic congestion. We know we're growing. We want to grow in a smart way and have all the options that people can move throughout the city. Number 3, parks and public space. As a commissioner, that should come as no surprise. But to me, it's important that our parks and greenways and open spaces are not just for physical health, they're for mental well-being as well. And we learned that during COVID. The other one is that I fully support public safety. We need to have competitive prices and pay for our firefighters and police to ensure all of our city is safe for everyone. And I also believe in transparency and public engagement. It's something I pride myself on as a consultant. I'm an expert facilitator, but everything we do, we must listen to the citizens so that you can have a voice in how our city is evolved. So with that, I want to thank you. I look forward to your questions, and I look forward to serving you on City Council. Thank you all very much.
All right, so we've had our first opening statements here, and it took about 35 minutes or so, which is good. So we have ample time, about an hour or so for questions. So Armando will go ahead and go into the audience as there are questions, and he'll hold the microphone. You can direct a question to a specific candidate, or maybe the candidate's running for a specific office. And again, we just ask that you keep your responses to about 2 minutes if possible, just to give an opportunity for as many questions as possible. So Armando, I'll go ahead and let you go, and just raise your hand if you have a question.
That's it. Let's go.
Wow, I need to sit down.
There's been a lot of talk about affordable housing, but some of my kids moved into some of the housing, and basically what they could afford was some landlords and whatnot. But the city wants to improve those things, and so they make it more expensive by requiring more things. So it's really very difficult. Increase, if you want to have, this is an opinion, so you can disagree with me. You can have, if you want to have open spaces and you want to have population growth, you're going to have some high density housing, like we have at least high around here. And so that's you're going to have a culture that adapts to that. I live north of Chicago, so I'm familiar with what public housing is in Chicago. And I'm not sure that you want to have that here. It's a little, sometimes it cannot be, sometimes it is not a very good thing for the residents.
Any other questions?
Did you want to respond?
We've got a lot when it comes to affordable housing, so I know we've got city council and mayor, so if anyone wants to respond to that, let's give everybody an opportunity.
I'd love to respond. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Don't mind if I do.
I'm gonna do the time.
2 minutes, right?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
But just to answer to what you were saying, I keep hearing that, we need affordable housing, but it's not about how. And then I also have been hearing, well, the city has free land for developers. I don't look at it as free land. It's our land, it belongs to the people of Raleigh. And I'm saying we need to utilize these resources actually for the people in Raleigh. A lot of growth that's going on is for other people that are not yet here. So when I look at it, I say, well, I've lived in New York, LA, and Chicago, and I'm running from traffic. I'm running from high-rise buildings. When I've been purposely making it my way back to Raleigh since 2018. And now that in the neighborhood where I live at, I say we need to be careful as we continue to build these high-rise buildings. And like you just mentioned with the density, they just rezoned 744 acres of New Bern Avenue to upzone for 5 stories. And I'm saying, I realize you want to have this BRT, but people are not going to move into a high-rise luxury apartment and then ride the bus. So I'm saying we have to be careful about some of this stuff. And then the BRT has a designated bus lane. New Bern right now is only 2 lanes. So you're gonna, right now, if you have four units and maybe 4 cars, and then you go up 5 stories and maybe have 50 units, and let's say even have 25 cars, and then you're gonna do that for 744 acres. We're about to have, like, New Bern Avenue will probably be a parking lot that you can just walk faster than a car. So these are some of the things that I also want to keep in mind. And I'm saying as well, like you mentioned, your family that's moving in. My daughter, you know, she has a boyfriend that she lives with. She could live on her own. She's more than welcome to always come back home. But, you know, going to college, you want to be able to afford your own apartment. This is why I say focus on affordability based on the individual's income. Use the individual's income. 1/3 of my daughter's income, she should be able to afford an apartment in the city of Raleigh. And these are the things that I'm trying to focus on, where from what I'm seeing with development and with traffic, those things are just not happening right now. So I truly understand what you're saying.
All right. And we've got, that was right at 2 minutes, so anyone else like to respond there?
Yeah, I would, if you don't mind.
No, by all means, then we'll go down.
Ladies first. Okay. So I want to explain when I first got into Raleigh, leaving Wendell, I lived in an apartment. Oh, by the way, it was a 3-bedroom apartment and I had 2 roommates. We learned how to share the rent. We learned how to share responsibilities. We learned how to be on our own as adults. The problem is we have way too many people wanting the government to be the solution when they should be trying to figure out their own solutions. So let's further to where we are today. I'm the only person who's running for office who's actually housed people. My job as a mortgage lender is to put people into houses. I've done it successfully for 25 years. I've done $600 million in mortgage production. So if I know about production, I can tell you how to do this. Number one, the city of Raleigh has the heaviest burden of state-owned property. What that means is non-taxable space to the city of Raleigh. I've asked people like Tim Moore and Phil Berger, people in the State House, to remove the prisons out of downtown Raleigh because those are wasted spaces. They did, the Governor Roy Cooper and his commission decided to decommission 3 prisons across the state over the last 5 years. And when they did that, they didn't take the prisons away from downtown Raleigh, which is the most expensive real estate in the entire state. That is called a government miss. Let me explain a government miss. If you have people in the private sector who know how to create housing, who know how to work with developers, and know how to put keys in people's hands, we look at underutilized property and say, how can we do these properties differently? Townhouses, row houses, condos. Condos and townhouses, row houses, those are what we call the gateway drug to single family living. People who want to live in those houses will come here and live in those houses. Oh, and by the way, once we diversify those properties from government owned to private owned, that broadens our tax base here in the city of Raleigh, which helps pay for our public safety.
All right, so affordable housing from a county perspective. First, I want to say that density is important, but when it comes to planning and zoning, that is the responsibility of the municipalities. Those are decisions that are made by municipalities, not your county government. So when you're talking about rezoning and zoning issues, those are things for your city council or your town council, depending on where you live. We're in Raleigh, so it's the Raleigh City Council. One of the things the county has done is 6 years ago, we actually took housing, the housing department, out of Health and Human Services and made it its own standalone department because we realized that the best time to buy property and to work on a housing solution was now, 10 years ago, or now, right? And so we started an affordable housing and community revitalization department, which now has over 200 staffers. One of the programs that we found as we traveled with the city of Raleigh or their inner city visits, which actually help look at communities where housing is an issue, where transit is an issue. It's an annual trip that a lot of your city leaders and county leaders take, elected officials, business people. We came back and decided that we would start an affordable housing preservation fund. What we wanted to do in a public-private partnership with several banks and credit unions and lenders is create an opportunity to keep affordable housing in the market. There is a lot of affordable housing still in Raleigh, and to your point, sir, they need to be rehabbed, they need to be updated. And so we have a public-private partnership that helps rehabilitate those homes so that they can stay affordable and that folks can live in them. And you don't have to feel like you're living with a slumlord or for a slumlord. Wake County is 850 square miles, 12 municipalities, 1.2 million residents. And so we are very intentional about how we are going to make sure that we're trying to continue to house folks in housing workforce housing that they can afford. 51 people a day are moving to this 850 square miles.
I want to thank you for your question. One, we just went back to school in terms of college, and we have, on college campuses alone, we have a housing crisis. We have a high number of college students who are homeless, just on the college campus by itself, and this was pre-pandemic. And so what you're looking at now, you're saying once they leave campus, most of them will not have a degree, according to what you mentioned, the story with your grandchildren, your children. They will not have a degree to be able to afford to live here. What we should have done 10 years ago, we should have acquired land so that we can own the level of affordability. We should have had a longer term strategy. The county has put together a series of tools in partnership with different entities, but they have put together a series of tools that allow them to catch naturally occurring affordable housing before it hits the market. We are losing more affordable units than we are putting back in stock. So we are actually losing affordable units faster than we are producing. And the cost to build affordable housing is going up. So even the cost to build that. So even though we passed an $80 million bond, the deficit that we're looking at in housing is monumental. And so if that's not your number one policy priority, then you're not serious about everything else, safety, education, I do think that the county has put some tools out there to look at the whole county, but there's some work that we need to do in this city.
I'll be really quick. One of the elements that you brought up was a lot more additions to housing, which increases cost. And some of those additions might not be worthwhile. I live in a building that was built in 1964. It's so old, my great-grandmother used to live there. And it's not a very fancy building, but it's affordable. And with all these new developments, there's more safety regulation. You have to have a sprinkler in every room. You have to have a certain amount of stairways. You have to have an elevator that's this big. All these things cost money, which makes it very, very hard to incentivize developers to build. I want to work with these people because I don't build houses for a living, and I have to work with them to say what works for safety and what is superfluous, and have a really long conversation and say, what can we do to make this easier for you to build more affordable housing so that more people can afford to live here? And so we need to increase supply. And in order to increase supply and to help increase supply is to deregulate. And another thing, I'm so sorry, I'm blanking on your name. What Commissioner Thomas said zoning is a city issue. So we have to zone smartly. I think mixed-use development is a great, great plan. You said you're from Chicago. I'm sure there's a lot of mixed-use development with residential up top and like little shops on the bottom. It's done in most of the developed world. I don't know why we don't do it more here. And it's really, really good for density. And that increases smart plan. We brought about BRT and pushing a more urban zoning plan around BRT just pushes the residents who are most likely going to be using BRT.
Can we explain just like BRT for some folks who don't know?
Okay, BRT is
what it stands for?
It stands for Bus Rapid Transit. It is essentially two. You want to explain this? This is your deal.
Just so bus rapid transit. Just so you don't have to go in depth, but people will understand what is BRT. Not everybody might know.
It's basically two corridors, east to west, north to south, that has very specialized stations so that it's a lot quicker. It's not going on the regular street. It has its own specialized lane and specialized station, so it doesn't have to kneel down at every stop. It saves time. It's good for Mexico City built like a bunch of these new lanes, and it increased the traffic flow quite a bit. But to answer your question, deregulate, build more density, and smart and better planning. That's it.
Here's the good news. Raleigh has a plan. The question is, will we follow it? It has a plan for high density, for mixed use, for multimodal corridors, for bus rapid transit routes. The plan is there. The question is, do we have the courage to follow it? There are two types of cities. There are plan-making cities that come up with a plan and follow it, and then there are deal-making cities where although we have a plan and a developer comes in, oh, wait a minute, we want this and this and this and that, and drives up the cost. We want to make sure the plan is predictable for you, for your family, for the council, and for developers. If we follow the plan, a lot more goes smoother, it's more predictable, we can determine where infrastructure will go, but when we move into the deal-making mode, it becomes unpredictable for all parties, and when we say we want 20 stories here and end up with 10, we take those 10 floors of housing that can house people and just throw it out the window. So from my perspective, we have a plan, let's follow it. The new council is going to deal with a new plan, a new blueprint about how we're going to grow our city. And for me, that's important to know where parks are going to go, new roads are going to go, where high density and neighbors will be conserved. My belief is I want to be a plan-making city, not a deal-making city, so we offer the predictability and not drive up the cost of housing, which in turn the homeowners and renters pay.
We do have another person who joined us, so I just want to say, is this Whitney Hill?
This is Whitney Hill.
All right, Whitney Hill Jr., welcome to the party.
Thank you. I apologize. This group's really important to me, and I apologize for being late.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
We've had many people come in during the process of this getting going, so it's okay. We're happy to have you do that. And I can just give you a moment. What we asked all the candidates to do, and I want to give you your moment, is for 3 minutes. If you'd like to just talk about your qualifications for city council, and also what you would do if elected. And then the Q&A portion will be, you can answer questions that have been posed. So you can certainly answer the question that's going around right now, and then do your 3-minute statement if you'd like to.
Okay, that'd be great. So, I agree with what Mitch said. We definitely need to follow the plan. Here's the problem, the speed that we're following the plan. Right now, I've talked to a lot of builders, it takes 2 years to get a building permit. It's probably not all the time, but that's just way too long. Things are getting slow walked downtown. Maybe we don't have the personnel out there that we need to have to get things done faster. But right there, the number one thing I would look at is the paperwork downtown. Why aren't we able to do this stuff faster? We got builders ready to build, they ought to be able to start building. And I agree with what Mitch said about private deal making and that type of thing. I think we gotta get the builders, developers, and the private sector folks, and the nonprofits, and sit down at the table and talk about, okay, we've got a plan. How are we gonna work together to get the units that we need so that people have places to live in Raleigh? I just got through meeting with Habitat for Humanity, and they are, got some insight into what's going on with the homeless situation in Raleigh. I really didn't need to meet with them to know that there is one. If you drive down the road and look into the woods, you see the tent cities. Those tent cities are starting to approach downtown. We don't want to be Seattle here. We don't want people out on the streets. We're compassionate people. And we haven't had these types of problems. And in Raleigh for decades, we hadn't had these problems. So it comes down to this. I'm a businessman. We need to put a goal up, get the parties in the room who want to work, who will work on this, and basically take the plan that's there and talk about how we can get the units in Raleigh that we need so people don't need to live in their cars and on the street. My name's Whitney Hill. I'm going to introduce myself now. I'm running for District A City Council. This is the second time I ran. I was over here the last time. I got into this thing originally. There's two things that are important to the citizens, and I never thought about running for City Council. I saw that these things were not happening 2 years ago when I ran the first time. And number one, people need to be, the city needs to provide proper protection for their folks. We haven't increased the police department in over a decade. And in fact, we're not even up in the budget amount of police officers because we don't pay them enough and they peel off. And I've talked to a number of police officers and you know, we just don't pay enough. We've got to compete in Wake County with neighboring areas. And if we're going to keep our folks, they need to be paid a market value for what they do, and they need to be able to afford to be able to live in the city. Currently, they can't do that. Most of these guys aren't voting in Raleigh because they live outside of Raleigh and have to commute in. Second thing is housing. That is a number two responsibility, that people have a place to live in the city. The city's got to take that on as you know, the people are responsible for that. And so I really didn't fully realize that until I ran last time, how bad the problem was. And you know, in this North Hills area, so I'm out here talking to folks who are, you know, 60, 70, 80 years old, retired, and they paid for their house, and they just want to live their lives out in their neighborhood, and they can't do it, or at least it's a strain to do it, because the taxes are a new house payment for them now. They just got their tax statements. And when you own your house, you gotta pay it right there. It's not, in your house payment. So, those are the things that are important to me.
All right, fantastic. Armando, if you'd like to, we've got more questions, so let's go ahead and take some more questions.
This is a question for the whole panel. It's been apparent that everybody is concerned with the homelessness issue and addressing it by having more affordable housing. But anybody that has done any volunteer work with the homeless knows that the problem is a lot more complex than that. And you're stating that college students are homeless, that in the public schools, primary students, secondary school students are homeless. It tells you that this is a more complex problem than just a matter of affordable housing, although that in a way solves part of the problem. So there are homeless people with substance abuse issues, with mental health issues. There are homeless people who are working here in the city, perhaps even in this building, who can't afford to put a roof over their heads, and they and their children are living in a van or whatever it is. So I haven't heard anybody say anything about addressing the more complex issues of homelessness. Yeah, but the affordable housing isn't gonna solve the whole problem. It may be a part of the answer, but it certainly doesn't solve the whole problem.
Right. Well, I think the county commissioners will be important on this one as well, but just this morning, I again work at Dix Park. We had a young man living in his car who has moved onto the deck of one of the buildings there, and so we were calling the Acorns unit, which is the city police unit that is run by folks with degrees in social services, clinical psychology, who work hand in hand with the police department, responding to these issues. So the formation of that unit of the police in 2022 was part of the city's response to wanting to not use the police for safety and security and then have specialized services for folks that may need more social services. The other thought is we do have to work with the county, right? The county is the lead on a lot of social services. One of the reasons, a model, Houston, they have 100 agencies in Houston working on homelessness. They have one portal, they have one set of metrics, they have one set of goals, and everybody's rowing in the same direction. They have gone to a model that doesn't use shelters, but goes direct into housing, which again gets to, do you have enough housing? We are starting to model some of these programs. There's a pilot coming up that the city will be instituting this fall to do cash for about 45 homeless individuals to get apartments. So there are a lot of different pilots and models going on to this very important issue that is obviously got a multifacets to it.
Can I add on?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Janet, for bringing up two of those things. So the first thing you mentioned was the alternative for crisis unit, and so the city of Raleigh has spent time this last year really focusing in on how we can expand that to have a more of a mental health focus for people who are experiencing mental health and substance use crises. We actually expanded the budget as well as added a call and crisis diversion lines within the city. And then I think you mentioned our direct voucher program that we also put money into, and that's just the ability that for people to get money towards rental units and being able to get into the housing market through a voucher program that comes straight through the city. And we do talk a lot about increasing market rate units, and that definitely has a role in it. Supply is a big part of the housing crisis that we have, but it's also, I think, important for us to really be focusing on implementing flexible rent assistance and rapid exits from homelessness to provide immediate housing solutions. A lot of the solutions that we have has been shelters or beds, and it's not really targeting the background issues that go into why people are experiencing homelessness, and then ultimately providing them the services and opportunities to then lift them out of those situations. So one of the things that I'm proposing with this campaign is enhance landlord incentives and housing location incentives, encouraging landlords to participate in affordable housing programs, move-in assistance, providing essential support such as furniture transition and household goods, targeting permanent housing placement efforts, especially increasing our year-round low drop-in shelters that we have around the city. And then improving some of the coordinated street outreach we have, really making sure we're reaching people where they are in the communities, whether it's in campus, whether it's in downtown, around the city, to really connect them with the services and the continuum of care that we have in connection with the city of Raleigh as well as the county. But we really do need to address our affordability issues by, allowing access units. And so I think we've been doing that a lot, but I want the city to go a step further and then really make sure that we're connecting and partnering with the county on a lot of things.
I'm gonna get very personal on this one because when I served New York City Parks Commissioner, we dealt with a homeless population. We did a census of close to 100,000 people without homes. Your question is accurate. It is very multifaceted. There are people who cannot afford a home. There are those with substance abuse, domestic abuse, and very often they're homeless with their children. There are those who are severely mentally ill. The reason why I take it personally is my sister, who was mentally ill for a short time, was homeless. She's now in a facility. When we were at the parks, and then there were some people that just wanted to live off the radar in our parks. We had a care team of parks, social workers, sanitation, police, a care team that went out to speak to individual to find out the right solution. There is no one size fits all. And city and county, although we need to partner, we cannot do it alone. This is a national crisis, and we need, and I will lobby with my colleagues on the city council and county and the state, the federal government, to give us the resources because housing is a human right. What is also sad is if a person, for whatever reason, gets incarcerated and now wants to work, we don't want to hire you. And now they're on the street. So we have to be wide-eyed about this problem and not assume it's one size fits all. This problem has been in our country for 40 years, and I haven't found one place that knows how to entirely solve homelessness. But in my opinion, we have to try everything. We cannot not do anything. And to me, we need the support of the federal government because state and local cannot do it alone. But we certainly, as Whitney said, need the compassion to deal with this population because we don't know exactly what's going on in their lives.
So I want to just jump in really quickly. So my PhD is in public affairs. I teach in the School of Social Work. Dr. Paige Moore was a former student of mine. She actually created the ACORN program. In that program, what you'll see is that it's actually underfunded right now, even though the numbers are increasing. Also with the ACORNs, it still requires a cop, and then they send the file over to the ACORNs. Also, what you see in our city is you see that the current infrastructure is frail. They're at capacity. I'm the board chair for a place at the table, and we're at capacity for people to come in and eat for free. These services are at capacity, and we need more support for the current infrastructure, and then we need to strengthen our continuum of care. Right now, what we have in place, to all you've heard today, needs additional investment, but also this needs to be a county-wide effort. It can't be that my city is strong and your city is weak. It actually needs to be a county-wide effort. And I just want to just give flowers to former county member Lorena McDowell. Years ago, she said, you're on the brink of a homelessness crisis when people didn't even know we was in a housing crisis. And so the county has been far ahead on the city on this, and I think the city needs to get in there.
I just want to jump in really quick. The first issue I have on my website is housing. The second issue, and I'm the only candidate that has this issue, is mental health. As a young person, it's really stressful out here, and I see it on the side of the street. And when young people interact with people who are on the street, a lot more young people are less friendly than we should be because it's uncomfortable, and I don't want it to be uncomfortable. These people need help. I'm Christian, and I believe that we should help as many people as we can. And Dorothea Dix is no longer open, and we need another solution. And I want to work with my local and state and federal partners to say, we need a mental health hospital, institution, because addiction is a mental health problem. People with BPD, schizophrenia, those are mental health issues. And if we're just gonna leave them out in the street, then that's a public safety issue. So all of these issues, housing, public safety, homelessness, they all are interconnected. And you know, my sister has had her issues with mental health, so much so that we've had to call the police, and Acorns wasn't operating at the time, but you know, it would have been helpful. And I'm forever grateful that the officer was respectful and gave us the proper resources in order to find her a good place. But that place wasn't in North Carolina. So why are we one of the top 10 states to live in, but we don't have any help for the people who need it most? And I really want to change that, and I think Raleigh is a great place for that to start.
Just to add on to that, it all boils down to accountability. I believe the budget went over $1 billion in Raleigh for the first time this year, and I believe it's like 1.4 billion for next year. And I saw the city, and I keep saying the city, I apologize because Mary voted against a lot of, some of the things I'm complaining about was not Mary's doing. So I don't want to say the city and Mary's sitting here. So the city said, okay, I'm gonna let you drink, and I'm gonna let you leave the bars and the clubs with those drinks, sip and stroll. And then became a problem with folks, crime increasing downtown. So I said, why don't you just reverse what you did? Because you added to the crime. But instead, the city said, the people asked for increased city council members. They said, let's go to 10 and don't extend your term limits. Well, the council voted against that. They said, we're not gonna go to 10, and we're gonna extend our term limits anyway. And then when the crime went up downtown, they said, well, we're gonna put 3.2 million for a private police downtown. That's not utilizing the people's money accurate. Now, you could have took $1 million and said, police officers only making $55,000. You could have had a mini police camp and had hired 10 new officers if need be with $1 million. You could have took $1 million added to the Acorns unit. And then you could have took $1 million to help reduce the homeless population. There are several ways you could do this. I was volunteering. There's a guy who owns a few pizza shops, and he volunteers like every Monday he gives out pizza. I was down there helping him out. And I met a lady, she was a former bus driver, had a heart attack, couldn't afford her bills, and now she's on the streets. So these things actually happen, but when I see folks say, okay, we want to increase our parks and we do a parks bond, and I believe people came up with close to $300 million, and then a third of that is spent between Chavis and Dix Park. I'm like, okay, I like these parks now, but do we need to spend another $100 million on the parks? So I'm thinking to myself, I was like, if you ask the people of Raleigh, they would do it. I mean, Dix right now is a 308-acre park. And I'm like, can we take 10% of that and go back to, like, cut that in half and do a 15-acre mental health facility, 15-acre affordable housing, and make it for the city workers? So at least we're doing a third of their income. But right now, there's another, I believe, like $40 million coming down the pipe from a parks bond to go to Dix Park, and another $50 million going to Chavis. So it's accountability and being responsible with what we do with the people, with all of our tax dollars. So it takes leadership, but it also takes accountability and being able to utilize the tax dollars properly.
Yeah, I'm gonna come back. You can have all these social programs, everything, and we obviously need them. I mean, we're in a national crisis, and we don't want mentally ill people in homeless situations and that type of thing, and that is part of the problem. I want to come back, it's supply, supply, supply. Until we get the housing units built, and you can talk about all the government programs and all that type of thing, but it's about building units. If you don't have places to live, rent controls or any kind of thing that you're gonna do to artificially hold down prices and make them livable, or subsidies or whatever that is, if you don't have enough places to live, you're not gonna be able to put these people into places. So that is critical. That is the missing piece here right now. We've got to speed up this process and get caught up. I was meeting with the Triangle Apartment Association a week ago, and they told me that we won't be caught up, and they're projected out to 2029. We won't be caught up by then. That's a problem. It used to be when I was, a few decades ago, coming out of NC State, the Lakes Apartments were affordable places to live. And nowadays, the apartment complex. And Nowadays, it's no longer like that. It's a supply issue.
How much more do you want to pay? That's going to be the question. You know, right now, people who own houses in the city of Raleigh, they're paying double what they were on property taxes last year. So when you hear everybody introduce, oh, we need this program, oh, we need that program, oh, we need another program. Every program means they need to hire more people. More people mean more money. More money means more money going into pensions, salaries, everything else that you'll be paying 35 years down the road after the program might not even be necessary anymore. The first thing you have to do is you need to recognize the problem. The problem is homelessness exists. Number two, you need to figure out how to get these people into one location to transition them to places where they need to be. If they're mentally and physically incapable of taking care of themselves, we need to find them long-term care places to be. That's not our responsibility. Those responsibilities lie in other places. And it's already government funded, by the way. You're already paying for this, okay? Number two, if somebody has drug and mental issue or drug and alcohol issues, they can be transitioned to rehab facilities as well. Again, these are places that are already taking your tax dollars already at this moment. Now, when it comes to the working homeless, I would agree. They need special care. They need special attention because they're trying. They are making an effort. And I think if there's a way that we can house them, I know where plenty of housing could exist. There's some housing available on Dick's campus with all the buildings that are vacant right now. That could be in housing. We don't even talk about the existing facilities that can be used in front of us that the city already owns. The city has this now. We can use those facilities to help transition people. Now I will say that there's one more that Mitch also mentioned, what I'll tell you about. That's the grifters out there. Those are the vagrant homeless who do not want to participate in anything. They want to remain out there. They want to take advantage of helpless and innocent people. Those people need to be arrested or moved on, one or the other. They don't need to be housed somewhere. They're illegally taking advantage of people. I must say one last thing. Mitch had mentioned earlier we have a plan in place. Well, the great philosopher Mike Tyson once said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. I'm telling you, the city of Raleigh's economy has been punched in the mouth. And what happened was we had a transition of our working force. 20 to 25% of our workforce has now become remote. It has left downtown Raleigh a vacant, barren area. If we target the vacant areas that we need, the underutilized commercial properties, or other properties that the city already owns, we can help transition the homeless people at a very low cost. The problem is we haven't had any leadership from the county or the city in the last 20 years to address this. I will.
Just real quick, and this will be short, and it kind of addresses all we've heard here. I think we have great solutions for these problems. The problem is we do not focus on any one thing, and we don't have the money to focus on any one thing. We like to sprinkle, and this is all levels of government, federal all the way down to your local government. We want to address an issue, but we sprinkle a little money here and try to fix it and say we're doing something about it, but we also want to sprinkle a little money over here. So we're talking about the homeless problem, and we got great solutions and great answers to it, but we don't want to fund it because we're going to sprinkle a little money there, but we've also got to deal with the school system. So we sprinkle a little money here, not to fully fund it and fix it, but just to sprinkle it to say we're doing something about it. And that's what happens from top to bottom in this country and on the local level. Painful decisions are going to have to be made if we want to fix some of these problems. If we want to fix housing, if we want to fix homelessness, if we want to fix the schools, if we want to fix these things, we're going to have to make decisions fiscally in a responsible manner, which means other things aren't going to be funded. Or we can just continue on the path we're on in 2 years, next election cycle rolls around, you'll have another table here of folks sitting here talking about the same issues. And 4 years after that, the same issues. It's time to make tough decisions fiscally on what we think are important. If it's homelessness, if it's mental health, if it's the school system, those are things we have to make decisions and put like a laser-like focus on those, because we don't have just an unlimited tax base to keep coming back to over again and again and again. People eventually will get tired of being taxed to death and they'll leave. And then your tax base starts to leave. And then your debt continues to pile on. And it's just a cycle that goes over and over and over year and after year. So I would just say when you're looking at who you're going to vote for, think about who's willing to make hard choices, maybe not fund something that might be popular to take care of another issue.
And then we'll go back to questions from the audience.
Thank you. Yes, sir. I've seen your hand, and so I think I'm the last person at the table who hasn't spoken about this issue. So I want to say, and I think Janet started the conversation by saying that Health and Human Service is a county responsibility. Health and Human Services does not necessarily lie in the city of Raleigh, although they have been a good partner, or the town of Wake Forest, or the town of Knightdale or Zebulon or wherever. It is a county responsibility. And so what we have done at the county, I think Mr. Ruth mentioned Lorena McDowell. Lorena McDowell is a subject matter expert in housing, health and human services, community revitalization. She was our housing director until June, and now she's in a private practice, and she's still a consultant for the county. But we have partnered with RI International to, with Wakebrook. Wakebrook is our mental health facility, and that is where we are providing mental health supports. We've also partnered with Alliance Health in a public-private partnership. So they are helping with health and human service issues, substance abuse. And there are other nonprofit organizations in the county, not all in the city of Raleigh, but again, Wake County is 850 square miles. I appreciate what you said, Mr. Arthur, about focus and where the focus should be. One of the things that I have done as chair for the last 2 years, again, I told you my theme is Better Together. I am a generalist. I know a little bit about a lot of stuff. And so what I have done, though, is my commissioners who really do have a passion for subject matter that is in their professional purview, I have really encouraged them to work on those issues so that somebody who has the professional expertise and the lived experience potentially can work on those issues. One of our commissioners, Cheryl Stallings, is a mental health professional. She serves on the board of Alliance Health so that we can have a voice on Alliance Health and with community stakeholders to make sure that some of these things are getting done. The other thing that I want to mention that I have not heard mentioned when we talk about mental health and homelessness, housing, all of these things is our veteran population. It's really interesting to know that in Wake County, we have the highest population of veterans of any of the 100 counties in North Carolina. You would think that it would be at Camp Lejeune in Jacksonville. You would think that it might be in Cumberland at Fort Bragg, but it is not. It is here in Wake County. And so when we talk about housing, mental health supports, health and human services, the Veterans Hospital, and care for our veterans who served our country, Wake County has started, we actually hired folks to work specifically with veterans and have more folks who are working with them to get the benefits that they deserve and working with them on mental health supports and housing as well.
All right, we have more hands coming up, so Armando, and we'll make sure.
This is for the audience, the panel in general. When I moved here in 1989 from DC, Raleigh was a really great little sleepy town, maybe 70, 80,000, 90, 100,000 people. I remember when the county hit a million. Okay. In 1990, my wife and I bought a condominium on Davie Street at Founders Row, right next to the city market. And at that time, there was nothing downtown but drug addicts and crack houses. We would listen out the door of our bedroom at night to hear the gunshots coming from southeast Raleigh. Over a period of time, that became so much better. Downtown developed into a vibrant area. People started coming downtown, and that was very exciting. Now on our cultural front, the arts front, we have a great city of arts and entertainment and recreation for people. A lot of people here have moved to Raleigh and really don't know much about Raleigh. Could you tell them a little bit about what the city and the county is doing to promote the arts and entertainment, and also give an update on Red Hat's move or non-move?
They say all politics is local. This is a local one. Okay, so just keep in mind.
While Mary's thinking, let me answer to the arts first. You're right, this is a cultural mecca, and one of the things you want in your city, there's this rule about placemaking, is that every city should have 10 things to do, with 10 things to do in each destination. And our downtown has it. There's a lot of entertainment, the Performing Arts Center. You have Art Space. We have events First Fridays. So it's very rich in terms of the art. There's Red Hat music. There are other quote unquote off Fayetteville Street venues, the Raleigh Little Theater,
So there's a lot to do with the arts. My wife, I'll brag, is chair of the Arts Commission and wants to make sure there are beautiful murals and public art for people to enjoy. Downtown Raleigh Alliance has amazing art experiences throughout the year for people to come down, and then there's the programming. So you're absolutely right. Arts and culture, it has to be authentic to Raleigh and unique to Raleigh, and we have it there in addition to the Museum of Art and other museums downtown. So to answer your question is, if you want to come and visit, you want to go to one of those 10 destinations, Raleigh has it, and arts is a critical component, and it what makes us special, including CAM, the Contemporary Art Museum. So it's there. If you haven't gone downtown, go First Fridays, wander from the east side to the west side. There's lots to do, there's lots to see. And I believe if you want to have a great city, there's 3 main ingredients: fun, joy, and happiness. You have those ingredients in your downtown, you will have a successful downtown.
I'm going to answer your questions from backwards. So you asked about the Red Hat Amphitheater. So currently there's no updates with that. We've had approximately 2 conversations as council members about the Red Hat Amphitheater. It happened right before summer break, so there was kind of this mass sort of conversation that was happening while we were on summer break about what's going to happen to Red Hat. And we only had one conversation, and there was never at any point in time any council member said we wanted to move it from downtown. I know there's been talk about possibly having it be at Dix Park because it's a part of the Dix Park master plan, but at the end of the day, that location was more geared towards the type of amphitheater that we have at our natural history museum, our art museum. It's not designed to be a concert venue. I think we have a lot of counselors, myself included, that are really invested in making sure that Red Hat stays downtown and that we see the continuation of all of our amazing concert series that we have there. I will be going to Carolina Days. I think it's actually this week to go see some people that I'm really excited to see at the Red Hat Amphitheater. So I don't think anybody on council has an interest in moving it, and it's been really great over these last 2 months to really hear the different small businesses downtown, as well as all of the creative people in the city that are really like, we need to make sure this stays here, this stays a priority. I think the question that a lot of people on council have is the impact to some of the traffic around east-west connectivity, and then also potentially the impact to Heritage Park, which is a public housing development right a block over. And so we've been navigating the conversations with RHA, with our business people, and with our creative scene to really understand what we need to do and how we can do it in a way that keeps us operating in time for next year. So as far as what's happening with downtown and arts and how we're promoting it, I would really love to celebrate the Downtown Raleigh Alliance. We recently came up with a 10-point strategy around how we can revitalize downtown, and a lot of it included the arts. There were things that I voted for and things that I celebrated, specifically with the murals, as Mitch talked about, sidewalk murals that have been shown to not only add vibrancy to this downtown character, to the character of downtown, and add color to downtown, but also slow down traffic, which is really important because we have this plan for a Vision Zero where we decrease our car accidents and pedestrian car accidents across the city. So as far as promoting things, the city has also been a part of really giving ARPA dollars into the public arts sector, specifically with our Martin Marietta, and funding grants programs for the artists that we have that are in the city, and promoting all of the different visions and things that we have around the city. We have, a wonderful museum corridor, several wonderful museums, and it's all
30 seconds.
Okay, and it's all bringing in arts and color and just more to the city. And so I think that's like the first thing people are going to know about when they come to the city. It's just like getting them connected, and I think we have a very active Downtown Raleigh Association that's really making sure that people are aware of what's happening and that they're able to be connected, whether you want to go to Jazz in the Park or our Hopscotch Festival that we had this past weekend, or the Dreamville Festival, or whatever's happening around town. So, yeah.
I know, Janet, go.
Can I just quickly about Red Hat? I didn't answer that part of the question. I'll defer to you, Janet. I'll be very quick.
It has, because now we have more questions that are coming. So Janet, and then.
I'm glad I'm not on the council because I'm struggling. I believe Red Hat needs to stay downtown, but streets should not be closed. This area was an historic area called the Fourth Ward, which was an historic black community that was wiped away. Today, with urban renewal, about I was a predecessor, I'm sorry, Robert Moses, who destroyed many parts of New York City. Right now, the administration, federal government, is giving people money to reopen and reconnect communities, not close them. So I don't know, there's not time, which is unfortunate, but I would have told the designers, build amphitheater on a smaller footprint, but closing streets are non-negotiable. We're in an era of repairing past harm. I'm very concerned that we want Red Hat to stay, but to eliminate a street of the original grid of the city, I'm troubled by, and I still would be advocating that Red House stays downtown, but find a way of keeping the streets open. Do 2 tiers to have a balcony, but keep it on the footprint. That is something I would desire. So I just want to say about Red Hat, it needs to stay downtown, vital to downtown, but at the same time, let us not do any new harm by closing off the street and picking on a scab that had been there for a community that has struggled to retain its history and identity in the 4th Ward.
So, because of the question from Ballard Everett around, we used to be a town, people would move here because we were sort of easy, good quality of life, and we were cheap. But we're not so cheap anymore. And so you do have to add these amenities to continue to attract and compete with other cities. I think, of course, Dix Park, I do want to highlight, because we've been talking a lot about taxes, I mean, there's an incredibly generous private sector philanthropic community here in Raleigh. And one of the arts is that we have raised over $40 million for Dix Park from private sector folks like the Gibsons, including art. So if you go down Lake Wheeler Road today, you will see 2 Duke power poles going up on Lake Wheeler that Thomas Sayer, the artist, is doing sunflower petals. This was all privately fundraised. And will be an iconic part of the city skyline as you go downtown. The other thing that just I think would be good to mention that the county and the city have been working on is the arena complex, right? This whole mixed, so right now you go out there, you park in a parking lot and you tailgate. This whole mixed use sort of district, we were in Atlanta on an intercity visit, and you see the economic development, the attraction of the hurricanes and others. So there's a lot of incredible projects going on across the city in parks, greenways, and entertainment complexes.
I want to briefly.
We've got a lot going on here, so I'm going to do 2 30-second answers here, and then we do have more questions, and then we can always go a little bit deeper on this one in the in that time, around 2:40 or so. Go. So you've been very patient. He's been hitting with the microphone. Go ahead.
Okay.
30 seconds.
Okay.
45 seconds. Let's go.
So 2 things. Number 1, I don't want to steal any of Paul's thunder because he talked a lot about this. We got to get people living downtown, and when I see high-rise condominiums and stuff being canceled, that's a problem. Events are only going to do so much, and I love the events. I think they're great. Also, too, this discussion about Red Hat should have occurred before we ever turned over made the decision to move or to double the size of the Civic Center. I don't know why. Maybe if Mitch was on the planning department there, that would have happened. But it didn't happen, and now we're having a full-blown discussion on it after the decision with the Civic Center was already made.
Go ahead.
I want to briefly just share that part of your question is you don't know what to tell individuals because our arts, our development is disconnected from a story. So we just was at a association that wants to preserve the history of Raleigh. We need to do a better job at weaving that story into our art. So when you go and experience the city, you're also learning the story. And right now, that's an area where we do need to improve, and I appreciate your question for highlighting it.
All right, more questions. Go ahead.
I want to go back to the issue of mental illness. Wakebrook actually has been closed for, you said you worked with Wakebrook. You don't work with Wakebrook because UNC closed it. And so the only other place is Alliance, and I'm not going to say anything about Alliance except that's where my daughter went when Wakebrook closed, and she's no longer there.
So Wakebrook UNC called us at the last minute and said that they no longer wanted to provide mental health services at Wakebrook. And so it took us we had to close Wakebrook, that is true. It took us about 90 days to find another vendor. WakeMed stepped in and took a lot of our mental health clients and constituents in that time that Wakebrook was closed for those 90 days. Wakebrook is open. Wakebrook has been open for the last 60 days. We did a grand opening, and it's being run by a company called RI International.
Well, they didn't hire my daughter back, so, as a social worker. I think I would've, well, but I'll check on that, thank you.
Can I just make a distinction between mental illness and mental health? I know Myrick talked about mental illness and health. Mental illness is something that is chronically wrong, that very often takes medication to imbalance what is going on in someone's brain, whether it's schizophrenia or bipolar. Mental health is something entirely different. It's how we talk to one another in this country during an age of divisive politics because our children are watching. How we are lacking the civility just to have a conversation. Or when I was commissioner, when everything in New York City was closed, the only thing that was open were our parks. They became sanctuaries of sanity for people to walk in nature and be bathed by the sun and the canopy of trees. That's mental health. Or places where you can gather during COVID, watching grandmothers and grandchildren meeting each other for the first time in parks and public spaces where people can gather and connect and feel joy. There's mental health, which is why we need our parks and public spaces to walk and get healthy and connect with friends. But then we have mental illness, which are facilities, like my sister unfortunately has been in for the last 2 years. They're trying to treat a chronic illness she's had since the age of 16. So I want to distinguish between mental health, which we all need. People experience trauma, loneliness, isolation, withdrawal, anxiety. That's one category. Mental illness is another. So I want to make sure as we have this conversation, I think Chauncey's wrong, I do have mental health, public health and safety on my platform because I, being a commissioner in New York, had to deal with it firsthand of watching people come off of Fifth Avenue in Central Park and you saw the anxiety drip off their body as they walked into a park. That's the kind of personal healing I want to see for people to be mentally healthy. So I just want to make sure mental health is one issue, mental illness is another, and our unhoused population and all of us in the room are dealing with at least the mental health issue, which is why we need gathering places to address loneliness and isolation in our parks so people can gather and feel healthy.
I wanted to add for you, I looked up on the wake.gov site, and the behavioral health urgent care inpatient care is available at Wakebrook campus as of June 13th, 2024. Recovery Innovations, previously RI International, officially opened the doors to a 24-hour behavioral health urgent care at the Recovery Response Center on June 13th, and it joins Wake Med, who has a 28-bed inpatient facility, which is next door. There you go.
Okay, so Armando, it's 2:30. Should we take a pause here or keep going with questions? What would you like to do? Yeah, I think so. I think if everyone has the bandwidth and the energy, this is a good conversation. We'll go ahead and take more questions, but just, yeah, I think we're good.
I'll go to Oliver, he hasn't had a chance to.
Thank you. I'm now a happy citizen of the Cardinal and enjoy my life here. But in the earlier days, I was the first at-large member of the Raleigh City Council. And served on the public works and situation that built the present water system and developed a plan outside there. I was there to help and see that it got done. But this water system that we share with the county. One thing I didn't hear you mention, and maybe you've been thinking about it, I think Raleigh is a metropolitan region. It's not just a city anymore. And many of the issues you'll be dealing with across Raleigh line into cities, smaller cities around us here. I don't know what the relationship is now between those, how to describe it, but the relationship has not been good with Raleigh and the rest of the county in terms of local governments. It has not, I'm not speaking of county commissioners, but of other towns in the area. And that has led to a lot of problems, and it needs to be concerned and addressed. And then realize that you're dealing with a larger area that which Raleigh is, and working a good relationship with the other towns that relationship has been, at times I say very good, but oftentimes not very good. One of our previous mayors was known as King, I don't want to say underline, say his name. This was, this title was given to him by county and residents and county commissioners. It shows you just how delicate that relationship can be and how it needs to be foremost in your mind as you try to govern this city and its surrounding areas.
If I could, I just want to repeat the question because I know some people weren't quite hearing it. So I'll just summarize what Mr. Williams said. He just wants to know about the relationship between the city of Raleigh and the other municipalities in Wake County. Sometimes it's been good, sometimes not so good, and that impacts the ability to legislate, make decisions, build bridges, so to speak. So Commissioner Thomas, we'll start with you on that one.
So I know that you mentioned not the county commission, but I wanted to start there. So as a county commission, if you all want to go back and look at the state of the county report from last year, we talked about, again, how we were better together. And I had all 12 municipal mayors talk about how they've worked with the county and worked with each other and things that we've done in partnership. And so I believe that the relationships are growing. The partnerships have been established and they are strengthening. Even as I look down this table, Mary Black and I have worked very well together. When she was first elected, she reached out to the county commission and we've had conversations. Janet and I have worked together at the county, but we've also worked very well with the mayor of Knightdale. Terrence has come on board with Lorena McDowell in our housing. And so I believe that most of the people, I don't know everybody, so I can't call out everybody. Mitchell Silver has worked with me on Parks and Rec, Greenway, open space, and water quality. And so I think that we have established partnerships, we are trying to do work together, and as the county, we are really trying to be the convener of folks working together because we understand exactly what you were saying, that there are not hard boundaries for the city of Raleigh. As a county commissioner, I serve all 850 square miles of Wake County, not just the city of Raleigh. I actually live on the border of Wake Forest and Raleigh. I have a county commissioner who lives in Knightdale, one that lives in Fuquay, one that lives in Apex, one that lives in Cary. And so we are concerned about the entire county and how we're getting along and have a regional mindset. And so I just wanted to say that in response to your question.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, well, first thank you for your service. Was that AC Hall, was plan director at the time? The plan director, was that AC Hall at the time, or you don't recall? He was. What I love about this region is that, you know, when you get off the plane at RDU, it doesn't say welcome to Raleigh or welcome to Durham. It says welcome to the Triangle region. That's what made this region different than other places, because you rise as a region or you fall as a region. It is important that we root for all the municipalities, be it in Durham County or Orange County, because we're viewed as a region with the Research Triangle Park, and you have Cary and Raleigh and Durham. It's important that we all work together. I know when I was plan director that the county plan director got all 13 municipalities on a meeting monthly so we can compare all the issues that we're dealing with. We're playing the Little River Reservoir because back then in 2008, we had a drought. We were down to 60 days of water. We banded together to make sure how we do better water conservation. So my point is, for us to be successful, we must work as a region. And so what Shanika said is absolutely true. There is a culture here, by the virtue of our name, this is a triangle region, and for us to be successful, we must have that regional cooperation. So thank you for your question. It's a reminder to all of us that we need to partner to go from great to greater in the triangle region.
Mary and then Janet, I think, response.
I really resonate with what Shanika was saying about better together. I think there has been, at least in my experience, a very big trend where we do have different municipalities that are a part of this larger 1.2 million people metropolitan statistical area operating in silos. And it does more harm collectively for everybody here than good. So I know I've been an advocate on council for building those partnerships. They're coming slowly over time. I was also new to council, so it was an aspect of like learning what the role is and how we interact with other municipalities and other governments when we are trying to do things together. And we don't do a whole lot without, making sure that we have those partnerships with other municipalities, but I do see the need for it. One thing that really comes to mind that is now slipping my mind.
Well, you're in the right room for that.
Come back to me.
Come back to that answer.
I also appreciate, anyone who's served on city council, so thank you. And the whole idea, that we've talked about how Raleigh has changed and that we are now 500,000 people, and the problems that we're presented with, the city of Raleigh cannot solve alone. So recognizing that as a candidate and understanding the power of partnership and the need to work and build these relationships, and not just around the municipalities, but with the General Assembly, with the state elected officers, is key. One of the reasons why I feel like I could add value here is, I served in the state senate. I represented Morrisville and Cary there, and of course, as state treasurer, worked with both, obviously the state, but municipalities around the state. So bringing that spirit of cooperation and partnership is key. So thank you for raising it.
I remember what I was
If the
going to
thought
say.
goes, it usually
Yes,
comes back.
came right back. So one thing you get with me is staunch environmental and climate advocacy. That's what my background is in. And so when thinking about some of the work that I've done and the ways I've tried to partner with other municipalities, it's been most recently trying to protect our drinking water. So Falls Lake watershed is mostly in Durham County. Very little of it actually is within the district of what is Raleigh. And Durham County has been doing a lot of things that aren't so great, that it is impacting potentially the quality of our drinking water in the future. And as we experience the first drought this summer in 16 years, and a heat wave that went on for several weeks, it really becomes a question of what are we doing and how are we planning and how are we recognizing growth and working with our partners who have more direct impact on some of the things that are going to affect us, even though they're not necessarily within our boundaries. So that's one thing that I've been working on, and I think that's something that is really important. So thank you for bringing that up about water. It reminded me of what I was going to say.
We have 2 responses left. I think Whitney's going to do one, and then Paul, and then we're going to wrap it up, and then you'll have some time to meet the candidates.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real quick with mine. Just me personally, I've been in the corporate environment, been in the boardroom, but where I really learned to get things done is in small business, in the small business community in Raleigh. And that's all about building relationships. And, in government and big corporations, there's a tendency there to, build walls, and it's a lot of times difficult to work. It really comes down to building one-on-one relationships crosswise in these various government groups, and working that way to get problems solved. Getting people over, say in Durham, on the city council there, a person you can build a relationship with to be able to talk about these problems and educate each other and work together on solutions. So that's one of the places I'm going to work on.
So Oliver, I want to first of all thank you for being an architect back then, because it kind of built what we're doing right now. But if you really want to know the truth, the rest of the municipalities around us, they actually owe Raleigh a great debt. We actually supply them the water. We've actually supplied them the purpose for being where they are. In other words, nobody commuted from Raleigh to Knightdale for work. They commuted from Knightdale to Raleigh for work, or they commuted from Knightdale out to RTP. So we actually have neglected ourselves. And that's been a severe lack in leadership in the city of Raleigh. If you want to put a pinpoint on it, Raleigh was #1 in tech back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. It was #1 in tech. We are #5 now. We are behind Atlanta. We are behind Boston. We're behind Miami. And we're behind Alexandria. We're behind Alexandria. I can't even believe I'm saying the words. We're behind Alexandria, Virginia. Okay? So when I'm telling you this, we have to actually focus on ourselves. We have to feed ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves. In other words, we have to focus on a leadership that will build Raleigh up and make Raleigh more livable. That will change the focus of the city. And sir, I didn't get a chance to answer your question about arts. We're losing in arts right now. DPAC wins way more than we do. If you ever hear anybody say I'm going to opening night to Hamilton or something else, They're not going to downtown Raleigh, they're going to DPAC. We actually have to have a focus on our own arts, our own entertainment, our own viability. And I think if we make downtown more livable, we can make those arts more livable again. Thank you.
Betsy, can I have a little sense of humor before we end? I'm right here. I wanted to kind of give Mary some comfort about her senior moment. You said how we feel. On my 50th birthday, someone gave me this card. I thought they wanted to cheer me up. When I opened it up, I just turned 50, and they said, here's one of the perks of turning 50. You can now share your secrets with your friends because they won't remember them either. And that really, really hurt my feelings, so it's okay, Mary.
I just turned 30 and
Oh, see, you got 20 years.
I think these days we all have those moments, right? We're going to stop here because it is 2:45, and we do want to give folks time to do a little bit of that, meet the candidates, a little meet and greet, maybe go a little bit more in depth. Could we please first have a round of applause for our candidates? We lined them up here in front of the firing squad. They did a great job. And then also a round of applause for all of our residents. For caring enough to be here. Because it matters, right? It matters to all of us. So thank you for coming today. Thank you for being with us today. We sure do appreciate it. We have about at least 15 minutes or so for a little bit of a meet and greet if you'd like to do that. And please vote. And if you, we talked about it yesterday, there's going to be a virtual candidates discussion on the 12th for the North Carolina Superintendent of Public Instruction. That's going to be the 12th in the Patina Lounge. And you can sign up on the community app to do that. And then also, if you need your sample ballot, there's been a little bit of a issue with the North Carolina ballot and Kennedy being on the ballot. So as of yesterday, it wasn't available. If you looked online, you should be able to go online to Wake County. Just Google or search my sample ballot and put your address in there. If for any reason you need help with that, Art of Living Well team can do that. One of the concierge can do that as well for you. But you want to make sure you get your sample ballot and see it in advance. And thank you.
I remember doing this last time 2 years ago, seeing you. You doing all right? Yeah. Hey, you know what? I wish I could retire from it. Good to see you. Well, I remember 2 years ago.
Did you guys hear me in the back? Oh, that's good.
Hey, Colin. Hey, that could make we shouldn't have 100%. But I live here. We have a right to as my mom used to say, she said, I'm willing to serve way too much. She said, I'll serve myself right. I got all this number one to do. You came in tonight. Yeah, I know. It was just so funny. He was like, no, 10. I'm like, I'll do it. I'm glad to be here. There's a cocktail hour for you guys yet? Close to it? Not quite. It's getting there now, right? Actually, I have to run because I'm going to take my dad to the late lunch.